Hey, Tyler, when it comes to investing, the word spectacular can mean very, very different things, including when things go spectacularly wrong. But we're going to talk about a couple of stocks today that the word spectacular can apply to potentially in positive ways for both, and why we think they might be interesting buys right now. I've got a really popular one that I'll talk about, but I want you to go first because you've got one of your typical way below the radar, behind the walls, under the ground, inside the concrete stocks that you want to talk about.
Yeah, you're making fun of it a little bit, but it's also monumentally profitable and crush the market. So you know what? I don't care if you make fun of me.
Oh, I'm not making fun of you. It's literally all of those things. Well, the products they manufacture are all of those things. It is definitely an irreplaceable sort of business. I think that's really great. Before we get into the details, though, I'm Jason Hall. It's Tyler Crow. This is Investing Unscripted. This video is sponsored by The Motley Fool. If you're looking for even more great stock ideas than the two spectacular ones we're going to talk about here, you should go to our special link. It's fool.com/unscripted. Go to that link and you can get access to The Motley Fool's 10 best stocks to buy right now. If you want to supercharge your investing results, go to that link, fool.com/unscripted. Okay, Tyler, you kick it off with your very obscure, very profitable, massive winning stock.
Hey Jason, have you changed any done any plumbing in your house lately? Maybe some copper pipe?
I haven't recently, but I have certainly sweated my share of copper pipe in the past. No doubt about that.
Well, good news for you. I probably know the company that made that copper pipe, and it happens to be Mueller Industries, and that's who I want to talk about here. Mueller Industries is one of the nation's largest fabricators and, well, they say extruders. It's just a fancy word for fabricating, of making copper and brass pipes. It's been a staple business for a long time, and it sounds boring, but hey, look, if I can sell residential copper pipe and get a 25% operating margin on it, sign me up because that sounds like a beautiful business. I get that, it's tied to the construction market in a large way. And so I think a lot of people will think about residential construction like new house, new home building and stuff like that. But there is quite a considerable amount of rehab and rehabilitation to do for what we've talked about in the past, which is a very aging house or inventory of houses in the United States. I think what's the average age? Like somewhere in the 45 years old or something like that?
Depending on where you are, but nationally, even in the newest markets, you average those in and it's still close to 40 years. But your point is spot on. There's a lot of those homes that need to be rehabilitated, but also a lot of people have a home, maybe not as big as they want, but with higher interest rates and housing costs, maybe their best choices in addition. Guess what? You need new copper piping if you're plumbing in that area. And then because of those pressures on existing real estate, the lack of inventory and the strong demand for new housing, I think we're still in a period of a tailwind for new building that could be a long-term tailwind for a business like Mueller. So make the case. What makes this stock worth buying right now?
Sure. Two things. Number one, on top of its typical copper piping, it's been very advantageous in buying a couple of smaller copper wire. So if anything that actually needs to move in electricity, I don't know, making EVs, transmission lines, anything that involve copper these days. They just bought out a couple of companies who very advantageously came in to buy companies who, one of them, their factory got ruined by a tornado and didn't have the money to restart. So great example of like smart, shrewd capital management. So there's that. You have management that is very good on that end. And I think it's trading at a relatively cheap valuation right now because this higher interest rate environment has really slowed down new build construction as well as rehabilitation and restoration because nobody wants to take out a second mortgage when the interest rate on it's 7%. You have a slightly depressed earnings right now, meaning it's trading for a cheap multiple with a couple other, I guess you could say, options as we go into other markets like copper wire. I think this is a pretty good opportunity to get into a quality business that has absolutely smashed the market over the long term.
Yeah, just some statistics. It's generated somewhere around 390% in returns over the past decade. That works out to, in total returns, that works out to 18.5% annualized returns, even with the stock having
From
done so
making
well.
copper.
Yeah, from copper. Exactly. But here's the thing too. This is really important. It trades for about 14 and a half times earnings today. So not a massive amount of multiple expansion here, an opportunity to buy a company in the right part of the cycle with the long-term opportunities, priced really well. As always, you're bringing a hidden gem in here. You've turned over a stone and you found, well, you didn't find a diamond, but you found some copper. So the right price, that's the key. Well done. I'm going to take this in a different direction, Tyler, and this is one that there's a good chance a lot of people that are watching this video are wanting to hear us talk about, and that's QuantumScape. So we've done a lot of videos about QuantumScape, and the only way to describe QuantumScape's stock performance since it went public, certainly since the peak, and use the word spectacular, is spectacularly bad. Got caught up in a lot of the EV hype and a lot of kind of the tech stock hype back in 2020, 2021. And the stock has come down a massive amount. And for good reason, if we're being completely honest, the stock has come down because the speculation that was being baked into the stock price, the many multiples, at one point it was, I don't know if it was more expensive than General Motors, but it was more on a market cap basis. The market was valuing it more than Ford for a company that's still hasn't ever sold a product. They're still pre-commercial. They're developing next generation battery technology, solid state batteries should prove to be lighter. You can charge them faster, more cycles. They don't tend to lose charge, so you don't end up with a battery that only holds 50% as much charge in 8 or 10 years. So like all of the less fire risk, like checking off the whole list of things that are current concerns for the future of electrification and transportation. They check off a ton of those things. But at this point, it's still a lot of speculation. So the spectacularly bad stock performance is the market coming back to like the reality that it's still a pre-revenue business that's trying to get there. I want to make the case that from here, and you and I've talked about this before on other videos, we do think there is wonderful amount of potential for this to be an incredible business, very profitable business, and to be very rewarding for shareholders. And it's looking more and more like I don't want to speak for you, but one of the things that kind of keeps pushing me closer and closer to seeing the more positive outcome for the company is watching how your mindset on it has changed over the past year. Your skepticism is still there, and for good reason, but they're doing what they're saying they were going to do. They're consistently hitting milestones. They've delayed a few things, but generally they're coming in pretty close to when they said they were going to do something, and they're pulling it off. So what have we seen them do over the past year and a half? So their initial samples going out to their OEM partners to get third-party feedback on those samples and great results, giving them great data to be able to use to improve the product. They've sent the next set of samples out that's based on their planned commercial products. They've made big progress on some technologies that are going to be required, some process technologies that are going to be required for commercialization. They call it Raptor and Cobra. Raptor is kind of a pre-commercial step, and then Cobra is their high volume production that has to do with producing the separators. But they've made massive progress with those things. And they recently announced a big deal with their biggest partner, Volkswagen, their biggest public partner. They have a lot of OEM partners that have not been disclosed at this point, but their biggest public partner is certainly Volkswagen. So Volkswagen's battery subsidiary, they've reached a big deal to license the technology from QuantumScape to manufacture solid state batteries with QuantumScape's technology sometime over the next couple of years. They're talking like some low volume commercial production in sometime in 2025. So that's probably a year from now or so. They're talking the second half of 2025. So we're seeing really tremendous progress on all of the things that they've been trying to tell us. And to me, that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, I've said it before. It's like I'm probably closer to wanting to buy shares in this company than ever before. I still think there's one press release where it says, well, this is taking a little longer than expected and that's kind of like, as you could say, the downside risk in it right now, because I think people would react quite negatively to that. But it's delivered so far, and much of the kind of hand-wringing about electrical vehicles these days would more or less be solved by what they say they can deliver to the market based on their testing. The batteries last longer, it's safer, it lasts longer, it takes shorter amount of time to charge. It does all those things. And yeah, it could be, it's speculatively spectacular.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So just to circle back to these two companies, with Mueller, you have a business that's proven to be spectacular at what they do, that's generated incredible results for shareholders. trades for a really bargain price, considering all of the tailwinds and their ability to navigate this tough market very, very profitably. So that is a business that is spectacular now and has already generated spectacular results. With QuantumScape, this has to live in the speculative corner of anybody's portfolio that owns it. The potential is spectacular. The risk is also still relatively spectacular as well. So definitely keep that in mind if you take a closer look at QuantumScape.